Every 65 seconds, someone in America develops Alzheimer's disease. So by the time you finish watching this video, about 15 people will have been diagnosed. And that for me is way too much. But what we do know is that about 40% of Alzheimer's cases can be absolutely prevented with lifestyle changes. And what you put on your plate is one of the most important interventions that you can do. But where do we start when it comes to our diet? There's so much information out there. But what I'm going to do today in this video is break down the 3 different diets that seem to have the highest impact on brain health and really tease out the aspects that I think are the most important for preventing Alzheimer's and dementia as you age, but also can help you right here and now with your memory, clarity, attention, and help you just live a better life in regards to brain health. I'm Dr. Heather Modet, and welcome to my channel where I focus on midlife health and beyond. I spent 10 years as a functional and integrative medical doctor, as well as a physician for a total of 25 years. And now I'm spending all of my time on education so that I can help people in midlife and beyond live their healthiest lives. Now, I will tell you that I spent a lot of time working with people who wanted to find ways to decrease their risk for Alzheimer's disease because of either their family history and also their genetics. And that's something true to my heart too, as I am at higher risk because of those 2 issues. So what we do know about dementia in general is that we can significantly decrease the incidence of it in our own personal lives by starting with what we put in our mouth. Diet plays a huge impact in our brain health. Today, I'm going to be focusing on 3 separate diets that have all been shown to have some benefits when it comes to brain health. One, of course, is the Mediterranean diet. The other is the MIND diet. And lastly, surprisingly, is the ketogenic diet. So I'm going to be diving in a little bit into each in regards to what is the data showing that these may benefit the brain? In what way do they do that? What are some of the drawbacks? And how can we take aspects of each diet to sort of create an outline of a diet that is something that you can actually continue on and still enjoy your life while knowing that you're also protecting your brain and preventing the onset of cognitive decline. The Mediterranean diet has had thousands of studies on it, and it has shown again and again to be protective against cardiovascular disease, diabetes, cancer, and also to improve longevity. There have been some studies as well looking at cognitive decline and prevention of Alzheimer's, but those are much fewer and they haven't really been that controlled. But we do know that there are multiple aspects of the Mediterranean diet that really, really support the brain. The other thing about the Mediterranean diet is that it's really easy to adhere to. And when we're talking about behavior change and interventions for health, things that are easier to adhere to in the end are sometimes much better than something that is really difficult to, because it's great to pick up a habit, but if you drop it 2 to 3 weeks later, that's not really going to help you. And the Mediterranean diet is delicious, it's varied, and you can pretty much find something to eat wherever you are throughout the world. Key brain protective components of the Mediterranean diet. Olive oil is the primary fat source, which is anti-inflammatory due to oleic acid, which is the main polyphenol or plant chemical in the oil. Also, the Mediterranean diet has lots of fish, providing omega-3 fats. There's abundant produce, 7 to 9 servings of fruits and vegetables daily, providing tons of antioxidants. Also, legumes and whole grains, providing plenty of fiber and vitamins and minerals, and also nuts, providing healthy fats. Now, there are small amounts of other meats on the Mediterranean diet, but they are limited, along with limited amounts of dairy products and also sweets. Now, the next diet I'm going to talk about is the MIND diet. And this is actually a diet that's made up of 2 diets, and it was specifically created to see whether or not it could prevent the onset of cognitive decline in the general healthy population. The first component of the MIND diet is called the DASH diet, which is actually a diet that was used to reduce blood pressure. Now, the DASH diet is high in fruits and vegetables and lean protein, but its biggest component is the fact that it has less than 2,300 milligrams of sodium a day. So it's very low salt. And just to give you a sense of what that's like, that's 1 teaspoon of salt a day, which for a lot of people is way less than what they're currently taking in. The other thing is that the DASH diet has low saturated fat and low cholesterol, because remember, this diet was focused on cardiovascular health, improving vessels, which are going to be, serving the brain. So they took components of the DASH diet and added it to the Mediterranean diet to create the MIND diet, because the researchers really wanted to find out if by improving vascular health to the brain and to improve circulation to the brain, in addition to adding the benefits of the Mediterranean diet, could they find a diet that could help actually prevent the onset of Alzheimer's disease? And what they found was amazing. This study was carried out at Rush University in Chicago on about 1,000 individuals who did not have cognitive decline. And they followed them for about 4.5 years. And they found that the people who had a very high adherence to the diet over those years had a 53% reduction in the onset of Alzheimer's disease. And that is really quite incredible. They also found that even people who had a moderate adherence to the diet had a 35% reduction of Alzheimer's disease. So that's pretty impressive. In the end, they found that the diet slowed the onset of cognitive decline by about 7.5 years. And that is more than we're able to do really with any other drug or intervention that we know of. So what are the MIND diet specifics? Now, they split the diet into sort of brain supportive foods and foods that you really want to limit or avoid completely. And they do give a little bit more specifics about how frequently you should be eating these foods. So what are the MIND diet specific foods? Well, daily recommendations say whole grains, 3 servings a day, vegetables, 2 servings a day, and 1 has to be leafy greens. Weekly targets: berries, at least 2 servings a week, nuts, 5 servings a week, fish, 1 serving a week, preferably fatty fish, poultry 2 times a week, beans and legumes 3 times a week, olive oil as the primary cooking fat, and limited wine, 1 glass daily, which is optional. Now, there have been follow-ups to this diet, and now they do not recommend any alcohol if possible because of the impact that alcohol may have on neurodegeneration. And here are the brain drains, or the foods that the MIND diet really doesn't want you to eat so much. These are red meat, less than 4 servings a week because of the saturated fat in red meat. Butter or margarine, less than a tablespoon a day. Cheese, less than a serving a week. Pastries, sweets, candies, less than 5 servings a week. And fried or fast food, less than a serving a week. Now, the great thing about the MIND diet, it was specifically designed with prevention of cognitive decline in mind. And it focuses on more than one area. It focuses on circulation, lowering blood pressure, and helping support healthy vasculature of the brain, which is super important. But then it also takes the aspects of the Mediterranean diet, such as lots of antioxidants and anti-inflammatory aspects, and puts them together to create the diet. The other thing that I really like about the MIND diet is it really gives people outlines of what they should eat per week to support the brain and what are the things that they should limit. It also, I find, gives us a framework that most of us can adhere to because it doesn't exclude everything that we like to eat, like dairy products such as cheese, and also allows the occasional pastry, ice cream, or candy if we like that. Now let's talk about the diet that is the elephant in the room, and that is the ketogenic diet. Now, like I said, I've been in functional medicine for over a decade, and in the past 10 years, the ketogenic diet has exploded, good or bad. And I have had some people do extremely well on intermittent use of this diet, and some people really crash and burn. Now, truth be told, the ketogenic diet was actually developed in the 1920s to address a brain problem, and that was epilepsy in children. Most of the use of ketogenic diets right now are used by people who want to lower blood sugar or improve their weight, but there are some benefits to the brain. One of the problems is that we don't really have any data looking at the ketogenic diet as a preventative diet for Alzheimer's disease or really any brain disease. All the trials that have been done up until now, which are extremely small, many done in animals instead of humans, do show some positive improvement, full-blown Alzheimer's disease. Now, why would a ketogenic diet actually help people with Alzheimer's disease? So you may have heard the term type 3 diabetes, which is often thrown around to explain an alternative name for Alzheimer's, because this is one of the many things that happens in the brain during Alzheimer's. We basically become unable to use glucose as our main source of fuel. And the thing is, the brain is the most metabolically active organ in our body. It uses up tons of glucose every single minute. And so it becomes sort of resistant to pulling up sugar and being able to use it as a fuel source. And because of that, the cells literally are starved. So ketones are really an alternative fuel source. They're what we get when we burn fat. And ketones can cross the blood-brain barrier and provide an alternative fuel for those struggling brain cells in patients who have Alzheimer's disease. Obviously, you don't have to have Alzheimer's disease to use ketones in your brain too, and that's why a lot of people actually feel like they get a lot of clarity when they fast for long periods of time or go on a ketogenic diet intermittently. Recent trials of 6 to 12 weeks have shown that people have had cognitive improvements, such as improvements in their memory and in their activities of daily living, which is incredible for people suffering from this terrible disease. But like I said, we don't have any preventative studies, so we don't know whether or not going on a ketogenic diet is going to prevent us from having Alzheimer's down the line. So one of the biggest problems with a ketogenic diet is the fact that a ketogenic diet is about 70% fat, about 20% protein, which is moderate, and about 10% carbohydrates, which can cause a lot of problems for a lot of people. And the biggest issue is the higher incidence of cardiovascular risk with a fat intake that high. The ketogenic diet does not necessarily tell you what kinds of fats to eat. So if you're eating a lot of high saturated fats, that can increase your triglycerides, your LDL, and your total cholesterol. And interestingly, people who are at the highest genetic risk for Alzheimer's, which are people who carry the ApoE4 gene, actually are already at risk for cardiovascular disease and high cholesterol despite their dietary intake. So putting those people on a ketogenic diet might be really problematic. One of the other issues I saw with the ketogenic diet, especially in my practice, was that it's really hard to stick to. And so there's pretty low adherence. It's only about 20%. Some people try it for a few weeks or a few months and they decide they just really can't do this on a day-to-day basis because it's hard to go out, to socialize, to plan their meals, to travel. And then some people just don't feel really good on the ketogenic diet because it is so low in carbohydrates. And depending upon how active you are, you may not feel very good. The other thing is that the ketogenic diet can increase cortisol. It can also interfere with your sleep. And actually, women do not respond to the ketogenic diet as well as men do, especially due to changes in hormones around perimenopause and menopause. Women need carbohydrates. The other thing I found is a lot of people thought they were on a ketogenic diet, but they really weren't in ketosis. They were eating a lot more carbs because on the ketogenic diet, you're only allowed to have about 50 grams of carbohydrates a day. Most people take in somewhere between 250 to 400 grams of carbohydrates a day. So it is a very small amount. And a lot of people don't realize that. And so what I found is a lot of people were eating very high fat diets, but they were also eating quite a few carbs. And so they ended up actually gaining weight and having blood sugar and cholesterol go up at the same time. So, what can we do with all of this information? And we really want to focus on personalized medicine. What is going to work for you? Because you may read about a diet, but if it's nothing that you're going to adhere to, well, then what's the point in starting it? So, if you're a person who just wants to reduce your risk for Alzheimer's disease and have a healthy brain now and as you age, well, then that's different than someone who might have a genetic risk factor for Alzheimer's disease, have multiple family members with Alzheimer's disease, or maybe other risk factors that are going to contribute to that. They may want to focus a little bit more rigorously on prevention. And my take is that we all should do what we are able to do. Perfection can really be the enemy, and 80-20, quite honestly, can be good enough. I find that when we try to be super strict about adhering to any diet, it actually makes our life very stressful. And I've seen this many years when I was working with patients. And so, really finding something that fits into your lifestyle, that you feel good on, that you feel that you can adhere to, well, then that's the best thing for you. So, if this video helped you, hit the like button, subscribe for more health and brain content. And until then, keep feeding your brain the good stuff.